Hey guys, Ben Big Stuff here. Welcome to another Gen 4 ECU technical support video. So on today's video, we're going to be covering how to add a lambda offset table to the startup of your engine. But this is really going to cover how to enable any table in the Gen 4 system for any use, because the same way we're going to configure this table will apply to any of the other modifier tables that you want to add if you want to add some extra tables onto the system. Okay. So what you want to do is you can either be online or offline when you do this, but you're going to want to go into your calibration. The first thing is we're going to talk about, we actually want to do a AFR modifier or lambda modifier. Okay. So I'm going to just take my network tree and close up some of this stuff. I'm going to come over here to this O2 modifier selection. And basically what I'm going to do is I want to turn on this custom 1D lambda curve. I'm going to enable this, okay? And I'm going to say that my axis is going to be based off of coolant. So the colder I am, I'm going to pull a little bit of lambda value out of the lambda target. And then that way we can be a little bit fatter when we're warming up. And then as we come into a certain coolant temperature, we're going to not have any lower lambda or AFR ratio. Okay. Now this is being done in lambda. In the BigStuff system, we do everything in lambda. Everything else for the most part can be tuned in AFR ratio, but for these modifier tables, you will have to do it in lambda. It's very simple, and you'll see how to do that. So once you enable these tables, or this table, you'll see it's going to be enabled down here under the custom section, or may say generic view based on the software you have. Custom 1D, and then you're going to have a 1D lambda curve here. Okay, so what we've done is we've taken the coolant temperature and we said at 35 degrees, we're going to be a negative 0.050 lambda target, or I'm sorry, offset to the current lambda target. All right. So if I go back to my target O2 table, you can see here that when I'm under normal running conditions, I'm around 14 to 3.5 air-fuel ratio. Okay. So if you want to know, okay, well, what's 0.05 going to get me? If I come back over the O2 HD parameters under O2 display, I can get lambda. Okay, and now I'll be looking at it in lambda. So you'll see here that I'm 0.953, 0.919 or so typically. Okay, so if I go down 0.05, right, I'm now going to be around 0.900. Okay. So if I was to go 0.900, this is just an example. If I was to go 0.900, okay, that's what my target is now. And if I go back to my O2 display and change it to AFR, now we'll see here that I'll be targeting 13.22, right, for when I'm warming up. So that way it's not as lean typically as the 14Os that were there, but it'll be a little fatter, and that can be whatever it is you want to be. We typically don't have to do this in our system, but we've had some clients come from other systems where they like having that offset there, which is not a problem. Typically for the coolant enrichment table is all that we typically need to get it up to speed, and then get the engine up to where it needs to be as far as the air-fuel ratio target. So this isn't a good example of what it would be. So now if I want to go back, and I can just simply make these guys the 13.50, then I can just make these the 14.0 again. Okay, so now you know during warm up I'll be at 13.2 around there with that 0.050 lambda. But I can always come back and I can fatten it up. Maybe it's not enough, right? Maybe I got to pull it down a little bit more. Maybe I got to go 0.08. Maybe I got to go 0.1. You know, just totally depends on how lean you want it to, how fat you want it to go. And typically by the time you get up here in these sections, 111 degrees or more, you don't really have to have any type of offset. You should be warm enough to where you can just run on whatever your target AFR or lambda value is. Okay. So once you've built the tables are all standard stuff. You know, you've got your icons here. You can interpolate the row, add, plus, minus, subtract. If for some reason the table looks all miscombobulated to you, you can come over here to these three dots. You can select auto scale, or you can set your own minimums as far as whatever you want the minimums to be. I made the minimum 34 degrees here for the table. You can see that. Okay, it max is 150, and then I made the minimum 0 up here because I'm pulling lambda, right? And about negative 0.05. So now you can have nice scaling on the table and it works for you. Now you're not done yet. There's one more thing you have to do. You're going to have to go into the system section under custom port editor. You're going to have to enable this table. All of the custom, or depending on the software you have, may say generic. All these tables have to be enabled based on something. You just can't have it based on when you turn on the modifier. You just can't have them just turn on. You have to come over here and tell it to do something. So here's my custom 1D lambda curve 1. That's the one I'm targeting. If I wanted to change this name inside here, I could come over here, set an alias name, and I could put AFR Warmup offset. All right. So now I know what this table's doing. Okay, I'm going to enable it, check mark the enable box. Power on is going to be off, active is on. And what I'm saying here is that if the temperature of the coolant in Fahrenheit, okay, is less than 150 degrees, that table is going to be true. As soon as I go over 150 degrees, that table's not on anymore. Okay, you could also add some additional conditions if you want. Maybe you want to have an and condition, right? Turn off the rest of this stuff, and maybe you want to have it so that the throttle position is not available, is under 5% as well. Okay, so now once temperature cools under 150 and I'm under 5%, just basically at idle. But then once you're over 5%, that table will kick off, and you're just riding on the regular tables. Do it like that as well too. But you have to enable that table inside here. So you'll see here you got the custom 1D fuel curve ones, you've got the lambda, you got the fuel table, spark D, 2D tables. All this stuff has to be turned on and enabled in here for any of those custom tables. Okay, but we're just using this as an example. If you wanted to throw an AFR offset, you would apply your changes and then you'd cycle the key. It's very important that you turn off the ignition, the system goes offline. Anything in the custom port editor, generic port editor, in these sections, you got to cycle the ignition, because every time the ECU boots up, it loads all this code. Okay, so once the ECU boots up, the code is there. You go to turn on in the morning. You can then look at your AFR target. You'll see that it is lower based on the coolant temperature, and then it rides that. Now, if you're in closed loop, when you first fire it up, it'll then target the closed loop correction to that offset based on whatever you have there. Then as you warm up, the closed loop will then use whatever you have at that table as it warms up. And then this table turns off over 150 degrees. It's not even being used anymore. So very simple, very easy to enable a table like this. If you do want it, again, typically in our world for our users, the coolant enrichment table is usually mostly all that they need. But if you want to add some sort of AFR or lambda offset, you can. Remember, this can be anything as well. Maybe when you're under boost, instead of having just the base table, you want to actually lower that target as well. Maybe you want to have it be a little bit fatter based on air temperature, based on ethanol content. I mean, these tables can be configured any way that you want. This is just an example for warm up for having an AFR offset or lambda offset based on running it. So if you have any questions on that, please give us a shout. We get on the computer remotely all day long with our users. We'd be happy to show you how to set this up so you can actually have this in your application. Obviously, all of the other tables and curves are all configured the same exact way. Anytime you enable a custom table or a generic curve, depending on the software you have, you've got to enable it through the custom port editor or generic port editor. Cycle the ignition, and everything takes effect. Okay? Any questions on that, please go to our website. We have a Gen 4 tech section, as all the stuff is in there, all of our instruction manuals, all of our paperwork, diagrams, everything's there. Go to BigStuffTPM.com. You also have the ability to see us on our socials on Facebook and Instagram, and send us email, support@BigStuffTPM.com. And we thank you for watching this video, and please reach out to us any questions, and we'll talk to you soon. Thank you.